What would you do if you won $50 million in the lottery? Would you tell your family immediately, or would you test them first to see who really cares about you? This is the story of Thomas, a humble baker who did exactly that, and the results changed his life forever. Before we dive into this incredible story about loyalty, family, and life-changing money, if you enjoy stories about justice, true character, and unexpected revelations, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us bring you more amazing real-life stories like this one. This is the story of a man who asked for $6,000 from his millionaire siblings and got refused, but they had no idea he had just won $50 million. What happened next will restore your faith in humanity, but for all the right reasons. Let's begin.
The smell of barbecue at Thomas's brother Gerald's house was mouth-watering. Premium steaks, imported beer on ice, the whole family gathered on a Sunday afternoon laughing loudly. Thomas sat at the end of the table with an empty plate in front of him and a knot in his throat. He wore his best shirt, but it was already frayed at the collar. His hands, burned from the oven of the artisan bakery he tried to keep running in his garage, trembled slightly. He waited until everyone was served to speak. "Gerald? Patricia?" His voice came out low. "I need to talk to you both. It's urgent." Gerald wiped the grease from his mouth with the back of his hand. "Spit it out, Tommy. If this is about borrowing money again for flour, I'll tell you right now the bank is closed." Patricia laughed, adjusting her gold necklace. "Yeah, Tommy, you need to learn to manage your little bread business better. God helps those who help themselves, but you can't succeed without competence." Thomas took a deep breath. "It's not about flour. It's about my health. The doctor said I have advanced cataracts. If I don't get surgery within 2 weeks, I could lose vision in my right eye completely. The surgery costs $6,000. Insurance won't cover it, and the public clinic wait is 6 months. I can't wait that long." He looked into their eyes. His siblings, his own flesh and blood. Gerald had just bought a new pickup truck. Patricia had returned from Europe last week. $6,000 to them was pocket change. "I'll pay you back as soon as I can. I promise." Gerald let out a dry laugh. $6,000? Tommy, you think money grows on trees? I've got employees to pay, taxes, overhead. I can't just liquidate assets because of your eye problem. "But, Gerald, you bought a boat last month," Thomas said quietly. "That's an investment in lifestyle. It's different," Gerald snapped. Thomas turned to Patricia. "What about you, sis?" Patricia made the sign of the cross. "Oh, Tommy, forgive me. All my money is tied up in a real estate fund that I can't touch. Besides, illness is a trial from God. Maybe you need to pray more instead of asking for money." They went back to eating their steaks, ignoring his desperation. Thomas stood up. "Okay, thanks for the lesson." He left his brother's house with the most painful certainty of his life. He was alone. What they didn't know was that his vision was perfect. The medical report he'd shown them was fake, a forgery he asked a friend to create. And what they couldn't possibly imagine was that in the pocket of that frayed shirt was proof of a $50 million Powerball jackpot win that he'd already deposited in a private account 3 days earlier. He'd asked for $6,000. They refused to save his sight. Now they would see who had the clearer vision of the future.
Thomas's name was Thomas Miller. He'd been a baker since he was 15 years old. He loved what he did. The smell of bread coming out of the oven at 5 a.m. was his life. He'd always been the poor brother. Gerald had gotten rich in the trucking business. Rumor had it by cutting corners on maintenance and taxes in the early days. But who was Thomas to judge? Patricia had married a real estate developer and lived off investments. Thomas had stayed behind to care for their aging parents until they passed away. He'd spent his savings on medications and home care, while Gerald and Patricia only showed up at Christmas to eat and criticize. When their parents died, Thomas got the old family house that was falling apart, while they got the valuable properties. Fair division, they said. since you already live in the house." Thomas accepted it to avoid conflict. He continued his simple life, selling homemade bread, rolls, and cakes in the neighborhood. But things were getting difficult. His industrial oven broke down, flour prices increased. He was living on the edge. It was on a desperate day, after burning an entire batch because of a broken thermostat, that he bought a lottery ticket. He used his mother's birthday and the old house number. He won $50 million. When he discovered it, he sat on the kitchen floor covered in flour and cried for 2 hours. The first thing he thought was, "I'll renovate Gerald's house. I'll pay for a trip for Patricia. I'll help everyone." He still had a naive heart. But that same night, he received a message from Patricia in the family group chat. "Tommy, cut the grass at Mom's old house. I drove by and it's overgrown. It brings down the neighborhood value. We don't have time for that. You who do nothing all day could take care of it." That wounded him. He worked 14-hour days kneading dough. To her, he was a bum. That's when he decided, "I'm not telling them." Money can be a blessing or a curse. If he told them now, they'd become his best friends. He wanted to know if they loved him for who he was or for his bank balance. He decided to create the cataract test. It was a plausible lie. He already wore thick glasses, which were actually just reading glasses, but he pretended he couldn't see well at a distance. He prepared the ground. For a week, he started bumping into things, asking people to read messages for him. "Tommy's going blind," Gerald commented at lunch. "Getting old sucks." Nobody offered help. Nobody said, "Let's go to the eye doctor." They just noted the fact as if he were a piece of furniture breaking down. He validated the prize in another city to avoid suspicion. The bank manager, Mr. Harrison, was the only living soul who knew. "Mr. Miller, do you want to invest everything?" "Yes, Mr. Harrison, but leave $60,000 in the checking account and get me a fake statement showing zero balance to carry in my pocket." He returned home with a full account and a guarded heart. Sunday's barbecue arrived. He went with hope, real hope, deep down. He wanted Gerald to say, "Of course, brother, here's the money, get that surgery done." He wanted Patricia to say, "Let's pray, but let's pay too." If they had lent him the $6,000, he would have given each of them $5 million the following week, but their greed saved him $10 million. He left Gerald's house that Sunday feeling like trash, not because they refused the money, but because of the contempt, his investment in lifestyle. His vision was worth less than Gerald's leisure. He walked through the streets of his modest neighborhood, kicking pebbles. He passed by Mrs. Henderson's house. Mrs. Henderson was a 60-year-old widow who sold meal prep boxes to construction workers in the area. She woke up at 4 a.m., just like him.
She was at the gate washing the sidewalk. "Hey, Tommy, what's with that face? Looks like you ate stale bread." Thomas stopped and looked at her. "Hi, Joyce. Just problems." "Money problems or health problems?" she asked, turning off the hose. "Both. I need eye surgery. My siblings, well, they couldn't help." Mrs. Henderson dried her hands on her apron. "How much is it, Tommy?" $6,000. She whistled. "That's serious money. But come here. Come in. Let's have some coffee. I've got fresh cornbread." He entered her kitchen. It was simple, but spotless. It smelled like cinnamon and vanilla. They sat down. She poured him coffee. "Tommy, I don't have $6,000, she said, looking into his eyes. "You know the meal prep business is tight, but I have savings I was keeping to replace my industrial stove that's leaking gas." She got up, went to a rice jar in the cabinet, and pulled out a stack of bills wrapped in a rubber band. "Here's $1,500. It's everything I have saved. Take it." Thomas froze. "Joyce, no, that's for your stove. You work with that." "The stove I can patch with epoxy. Tommy, you can't patch an eye. If you go blind, how will you make your bread? Take it. It's a loan, okay? When you can, pay me back in bread." She put the money in his hand, calloused hands just like his. "And if you need the rest, we'll do a fundraiser in the neighborhood. I'll make a barbecue, we'll sell plates, we'll figure it out. Nobody lets go of anybody's hand here." Thomas held back tears. This woman, who had no blood relation to him, was giving him her life savings, sacrificing her work tool to save him, while his millionaire brother denied him spare change. "Joyce, I can't accept this." "Yes, you can. Stop being proud," she scolded, stuffing the money in his pocket. "Go schedule that doctor tomorrow." He accepted the money, not because he needed it, but because he needed to feel that act of love. That money had a different energy. It weighed more than the $50 million. "Thank you, Joyce. You don't know what this means." "I do. It means we're in this together." He went home and put Mrs. Henderson's $1,500 in a separate envelope. He wrote on it, "Sacred."
The following week, he continued his act. He called Gerald. "Gerald, I got part of it. A neighbor lent me some. I still need $4,500. You really can't help?" "Gerald, I told you," Gerald yelled. "Stop begging. Sell that old car of yours. Sell the oven. Figure it out." He called Patricia. "Patricia, a neighbor helped." "That's wonderful. God provided through the neighbor, see? Didn't need me. Glory to God." And she hung up. They were incorrigible. He decided it was time to act. He went to the bank, withdrew cash, hired a construction company from another city. He arrived at Mrs. Henderson's house on a Tuesday afternoon. "Joyce, I need to return your money." "Already? But did you have the surgery?" "I had a miracle. Got healed for free." He smiled. "Here's your money back." He handed her the envelope with her $1,500. "And this is the interest." He handed her another envelope. She opened it. There was a check for $600,000. Mrs. Henderson looked at the check. Her eyes tried to focus on the zeros. "Tommy, is this fake? Is this a prank? $600,000? "It's not fake, Joyce. It's real. I won the lottery. $50 million. She sat down in her chair. The glass of water on the table trembled. "Lord have mercy. And you were asking for money? Why?" "To know who deserved to be with me in good times. My siblings turned their backs on me. You gave me your stove money." He knelt in front of her. "This check is for you to buy your own house, retire those pots and pans if you want, travel. It's yours." She started crying, cried so much she soaked his shoulder. "I love you, Tommy. I've never seen this much money. I just wanted to help." "I know. That's why you deserve it." "But I love you. What about the stove?" she asked innocently. He laughed. "Forget the stove, Joyce. I bought the old bakery building downtown, the big one on the corner. I'm reopening it, and I want you as a partner. You bring the meal prep and hot foods, I bring the bread. We hire people to cook for us. You'll be the boss."
News of Mrs. Henderson's fortune leaked quickly. Small towns are like that. But Thomas asked for secrecy about the exact origin and his total prize amount. They said he'd received an inheritance from a distant relative and invested in her business. His siblings heard rumors that he had money, but thought it was a lie, or very little. "He probably sold Mom and Dad's old house to waste it," Gerald told a cousin. Thomas decided it was time for the official revelation. He invited Gerald and Patricia to a thank you dinner. "Thank you for what?" Patricia asked on the phone. "Did you have the surgery?" "I did, thanks to God and the help I received. I want to celebrate with family." He reserved a table at the Crystal Palace. The Crystal Palace was the most expensive restaurant in the region. Gerald was curious. "You're paying for dinner at the palace? Doing well, huh, blind boy?" "Sold some things. Want to gather the family." "Did they go?" "Of course they went. Free food and a fancy place. They wouldn't miss it." They arrived dressed like royalty. Gerald with a huge gold watch, Patricia in a sequined dress. Thomas was waiting. He wore a custom-made navy blue suit, Italian shoes, and a discreet watch that cost more than Gerald's truck. When they saw him, they stopped at the entrance. "Tommy," Gerald frowned, "who'd you steal that suit from?" "Good evening, siblings. Please, sit down." Mrs. Henderson was at his side, looking elegant with her hair done and makeup on.
"What's the meal prep lady doing here?" Patricia whispered with disgust. "Mrs. Henderson is my guest of honor," Thomas replied firmly, "and my business partner." "Partner in what?" Gerald mocked. "Selling stale bread?" The waiter served champagne. "A toast," Thomas said, raising his glass. "To vision," Patricia repeated. "Yes, the ability to see who's who." He pulled 2 envelopes from his pocket. Gerald's eyes grew wide. "What's that, money?" "No, these are receipts." He placed on the table the receipt for his new house, $3.5 million. Receipt for the bakery renovation, $1.2 million. Receipt for the check he gave Mrs. Henderson, $600,000. They grabbed the papers with trembling hands. "Tommy, where did this come from?" Gerald was sweating. "Powerball, $50 million. Won it the week before I asked you for $6,000. The reaction from Gerald and Patricia was an anthropological study in human greed. First shock, then denial, then desperate flattery. Patricia almost choked on her champagne. "50 million? Tommy, my dear little brother, why didn't you tell us? We would have thrown you a party." "I didn't tell you because I was running a test," Thomas replied, cutting a piece of filet mignon. "I said I was going blind. I asked for $6,000. You had it. You were spending lavishly, and you refused me." Gerald tried to fix it, stammering. "Look, Tommy, it wasn't refusing. It was a lesson. I wanted you to learn to fend for yourself, to fight. It was for your own good. If I'd given you easy money, you wouldn't appreciate it." "Ah, so it was a pedagogical lesson," Thomas laughed ironically. "Well, I learned. I learned that when you're at your worst, blood means nothing. What matters is heart." He pointed at Mrs. Henderson. "This woman gave me her life savings. She was going to be without a working stove to give me my sight. That's why she got $600,000 and half of my company." Patricia looked at Mrs. Henderson with deadly hatred mixed with envy. "You gave $600,000 to a neighbor, Tommy? That's insanity. She's a stranger. We're your family. You have a moral obligation to us." "Moral obligation?" Tommy slammed his hand on the table, making the silverware clink. "Where was your moral obligation when our parents were sick and I took care of them alone? Where was it when I asked for help so I wouldn't go blind?" "But we can make it up now," Gerald said desperately. "Tommy, I have great investment ideas. We can expand the trucking business. You put in the capital, I handle management. We're brothers, man. Blood is thicker than water." "Blood is thicker than water," Tommy replied, "but Mrs. Henderson's money was thicker than yours. My money is already invested, Gerald, and not with you." He called the waiter. "The check, please." The waiter brought it. Thomas paid for the expensive dinner. "This dinner is the last thing you'll ever get from me," he announced, standing up. "Eat well, enjoy the wine, because starting tomorrow, the poor blind Tommy is dead, and the millionaire Tommy has no siblings." Patricia started crying. "You're abandoning us? I'm in debt, Tommy. That real estate fund lost money. I lied. I need help." "Yeah," Tommy said, imitating her tone. "Debt is a trial from God. Maybe you need to pray more instead of asking for money." He turned his back. Mrs. Henderson stood up, smoothed her dress, and looked at them. "Meal prep tomorrow is chicken with okra. If you want some, it's $25, but for you two, it's payment in advance." And they walked out, leaving them two sitting at the luxury table with the bitterest meal of their lives. Resolution. Life after that night changed completely. Tommy and Joyce's bakery opened a month later. It was a resounding success, not because Thomas needed the profit, but because they made everything with the best ingredients, no cutting corners. Mrs. Henderson proved to be a natural administrator. She ran the kitchen with an iron hand and a heart of butter. Thomas continued waking up early to make bread, not out of obligation, but out of love. The difference was that now, when he got tired, he'd go to his country house to rest by the pool, instead of collapsing on an old couch with back pain. Gerald and Patricia felt the blow. The whole town found out about the story. Mrs. Henderson discreetly told some gossipy customers, and the news spread like wildfire. They became the town's laughingstock, the siblings who lost out on $50 million because they wouldn't lend $6,000. Gerald had business problems. Customers boycotted his trucks. He had to sell the boat and the pickup to cover losses. Today, he lives modestly, always complaining about his brother's injustice. Patricia had to sell her jewelry and lower her standard of living. Her real estate developer husband, discovering she had no access to Tommy's fortune, started cutting her allowances. They tried to reconcile several times. At Christmas, they sent gifts. Tommy returned them all. He didn't hold hatred. Hatred is poison you drink hoping someone else will die. He kept his distance. That's different.
The other day, Thomas was at the bakery counter. A humble, elderly man came in with broken glasses mended with duct tape. He ordered a coffee and a roll. "How much is it, sir?" the man asked, counting coins. Thomas looked at his glasses, remembered himself. "It's on the house, friend." Then he added, "And tell me something. Are you seeing okay with those glasses?" "More or less. I need to replace them, but times are tough." Thomas pulled out a card from his pocket, the card of the city's best eye clinic. "Go there tomorrow. Say Thomas sent you. Everything's paid for. Glasses, exam, surgery if you need it." The man cried, "Why are you doing this for me?" "Because one day I needed to see the truth, and it cost me dearly. I want you to see for free." Mrs. Henderson smiled from the register. "We understand each other. Money isn't for building walls, it's for building bridges. But some bridges, like the one connecting him to his siblings, were too rotten to be repaired. It was better to let them fall. Now Thomas builds new bridges with real people. And the view from here? The view from here is beautiful, perfect without any cataracts at all."
Thomas's story teaches us a powerful lesson. Money doesn't reveal character, it reveals what was already there. His siblings showed their true colors when they thought he had nothing, and Mrs. Henderson showed hers when she gave everything she had. The $50 million didn't change Thomas, it just gave him the clarity to see who deserved to be in his life. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more incredible real-life stories about loyalty, justice, and the true meaning of family. Drop a comment below. Would you have tested your family like Thomas did? And if you know someone who needs to hear this story about what really matters in life, please share it with them. Remember, the richest people aren't those with the most money, they're the ones with the most integrity. And sometimes you have to pretend to be blind to finally see clearly. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.